See if anybody finds me over there. So the Abraham Accords are 1 year old. And here's the big news. They worked. The Abraham Accords worked. So it's a year later and everybody's happy. That's one of the most amazing things. When do things work? When was the last time something actually worked just the way you wanted it to work? Isn't that weird? So this is a gigantic Trump accomplishment. Avi Berkowitz and Jared Kushner got nominated for, Nobel Peace Prize for this, and it worked. Lots of times somebody will get nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, and then a year later it's just everything fell apart. But here's a case where they got nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, and it worked. Like every part of this worked. It's going great. They're doing trade, travel. So that's just a huge thing for the Trump administration. So Mike Lindell is doing his cyber symposium, and it's not going well. It's not going well. So I guess the point of the cyber symposium was to show us all of these strong evidence of voter fraud, which turned into no evidence of voter fraud whatsoever. At least, yeah, my microphone's unplugged. We'll see if this makes a difference on. See if that makes a difference on YouTube. YouTube stopped. Are you serious? That the Locals is back? All right. Sounds okay. Good Lord. Can you believe that live streaming is such a big deal? And at the same time, nobody can do it. The technology for live streaming on two platforms just really doesn't exist. I mean, I'm trying to bang it together on my own with trial and error, every component, and you can't really make any of it work consistently. It's all really hinky. All right, I think Locals is back on audio, right? Somebody on Locals tell me you can hear. No audio still on Locals. I don't believe that. Really? No audio here. Jesus. Do you mind over on YouTube? You still have audio. Same here. No audio. Really? Really? Is it fucking true that I don't have audio on either platform right now? I'm using two completely separate systems, and nobody can hear me. Audio. Let's see. No audio, no audio. Good Lord. I can't fucking believe it. All right, let's try it again. I'll tell you, the fact that this technology, I've simplified it to the ultimate simplicity. It's just an iPad now with a microphone. And even that doesn't work. There's just like fucking nothing you can do. All right, well, I'll just finish up on YouTube here. And so the Cyber Symposium isn't going too well. Mike Lindell tried to show his evidence, but there was a CNN expert there who said, I didn't see any. He didn't say the evidence was wrong. He just said he didn't see any. So we've gotten to this point where Mike Lindell has done all this work, and at least according to CNN, they didn't agree or disagree with his evidence. They didn't see any. All right. I was suggesting today that we need something like a Supreme Court for fact-checking. And, of course, as soon as I said that, then all of the, well, I won't insult people, but there's a certain type of thinking. Was it, who called this snap to grid? Eric Weinstein? Snap to grid thinking? Where if you give anybody any nuance about anything, they can't handle the nuance, so they have to snap it to the closest grid. That's something they do understand. So I think, I'm not sure if he uses it in the same context, but I like that analogy. So a lot of people said, wait, a Supreme Court for fact-checking, you mean like the Ministry of Truth? Scott, you mean like the Ministry of Truth? That's really what you're recommending? To which I say, no, that's what we have now. The Ministry of Truth is the current situation, where the powers that be tell you what's true, and your side says, oh yeah, I guess that's true. And then the other side says it's not true. So we have the Ministry of Truth, but there are two of them. There's one for the left and one for the right. So it's the opposite of anything useful. So imagine, if you will, a Supreme Court for fact-checking, something that we wouldn't have needed in the past, and so the founders never would have imagined that they needed a special department for it. But imagine if you had facts that were presented by, let's say, the media or even the public, and they could just submit stuff for fact-checking. And imagine, if you will, that the process for arguing the facts was public. So you'd see the people on both sides arguing their facts. You would see the members of the fact-checking Supreme Court ask them questions. And then when it was done, they would issue a ruling, and there would be a minority report. The minority report is really important. And certainly we don't have anything like that. Wouldn't you like to see 7 justices say, well, we looked at the data and let's say we're trained economists or we're trained in statistics or whatever, and 7 out of 9 of us say, yes, this is true. But you should know that 2 out of 9 of us weren't so sure, and here are their reasons. Wouldn't that be way better than nobody trying to figure out what's true, or partisans figuring out what's true? Now imagine, too, that you had life appointments, which is one of the things that makes the Supreme Court work. Life appointments, so nobody has to answer to anybody. And you make it a high-paying job, prestigious, so that people don't need to take bribes. So whatever it is that makes the Supreme Court work, we could borrow a lot of that to make some kind of a, not Ministry of Truth, but a Supreme Court for facts. And don't reject it out of hand just because you can't think of the exact way to do that. Just think that everything that's wrong right now is because we don't have this. Let me say that again. Everything that's wrong with the country is because we don't have a Supreme Court for fact-checking. We can't agree what to do. Now, some of the things we can't agree on are strategy, and nobody really knows the future, so you can't tell if strategy is a good idea, usually. But facts, we ought to be working on the same set of facts. So let's fix that. It's fixable. You just need a better system. Birth rate is falling since 2007, and I guess a big part of the problem is that children or parents don't want all the responsibility and all the work. Here's another case where we have drifted into a world that doesn't work at all, and we should just tear it down and start over. The average way that parents raise kids in the United States is so messed up. It's not good for the kids. It's definitely not good for the parents. It's just sort of what we do. Let me give you an example. I might spend 2 hours a day driving kids to school. 2 hours. Because everybody drives out here and there's gigantic lines. You got to go early. You know, it's across town. You know, there's just all kinds of complications to it. That's just every day. Now, that's all just completely wasted time. Completely wasted time. Because you should build a town where kids can walk to school. When I grew up, we just walked to school. It wasn't close. I mean, not that close, but it was close enough. Imagine building a town where there are bicycle paths, and it's safe and lighted, and there are, say, video cameras. And any kid, even the young ones, can just leave the house with their little lunch box and walk on the path and just walk to school. There'd be big kids there, and, you know, everything would be safe enough. So you could imagine like 100 different ways the classes would be better. They would teach better things. They could get back and forth easily. There wouldn't be all that paperwork. You wouldn't have these after-school activities that don't really help anybody. There's just a million things you could redesign.
So we've actually got our systems for raising children. So here's the major point. The system for raising children is so bad that women won't do it. It's just too inconvenient. And I actually agree with them. If I look at what it takes to raise a kid today versus what it took, when I was a kid, they're completely different. And we were raised almost like, like feral, free-range chickens. We'd leave, at a fairly young age, we were allowed to leave the house, let's say the summer. In the summer, you could leave the house on your bike, and your only requirement was to be home for dinner, 5 o'clock. That's it. That's the next time your parents would see you, is when you sat down at the dinner table. Now, I'm not saying that's a good or bad system, but I'm saying that our system for raising children is completely broken. And if we don't fix it, our birth rate is just going to fall through the floor. Because having a child today is just really not a good deal compared to what it was. Here's a provocative statement I made, that the least credible thing you can see on the internet is the rogue doctor who disagrees with all the other doctors. Now, this is going to be a tough conversation here, I know. The rogue doctor who disagrees with all the other doctors, and there's a viral video. Now, you're thinking of specific ones in your head right now, right? It's not about a specific one. It's about the category. Because part of your risk management decision is to look at the category. So let me give you an example. Somebody tells you that they have figured out how to make nuclear fusion work in their garage with components that they bought at the hardware store. Now, that's a category of claim that's always untrue. So you don't need to look at the details. I mean, you should probably, maybe you should look into them a little bit. But you don't need to know if it's probably not true, right? There's some things that are in that just category of probably not true. And the rogue doctor who sees what nobody else can see, only I have seen the truth, and all the other experts in my field have not seen the truth. And let me tell you, I've treated 15 people, and so I know what the randomized controlled trials do not know because of my 15 anecdotal examples. All right? Now, forget about the fact that I called them rogue. Let's say they're the ones disagreeing with the mainstream, whatever you want to call that. In my experience, I can't think of a single time that the lone doctor with the viral video has been right in the end. Can you? Now, I know you can think of some examples from all of history. So, for example, you'll say, well, for every big change, there was somebody who got there first. So yeah, for everything that we didn't have right in the past, but now we do, there was a rogue doctor. Somebody went first. But how about the last 10 years? In the last 10 years, how many videos have there been of the rogue doctor, who's the only one who sees everything the way it is? How many of them turned out to be right? Once enough time had gone by that we know if they're right or wrong. None? None, right? So the odds of the rogue doctor being right are close to zero. They're not zero, though. They're not zero. So the trouble is that they're very convincing. They're very convincing. And somebody says, Rand Paul. That's a special case. Rand Paul's a politician who also is a doctor. I don't know if I would count that one. That's sort of a special case. So anyway, I would just say this. If you believe that doctor you saw in the video, whichever doctor it was, and whichever video it was, if you believe them when they're disagreeing with all the other experts, they could be true. It could be true. But I'd say the odds of it are under 10%, let's just say. Does anybody disagree with that, by the way? Does anybody disagree with the sort of general notion that 9 out of 10 of these doctors who have the secret and nobody else has it, 9 out of 10 are bullshit, right? So keep that in mind. Here's an interesting thing that happened on the internet today. There was Ken Kalanian, who works for NBC News. He tweeted that at least 125,000 fully vaccinated Americans have tested positive for COVID. 125,000 fully vaccinated Americans still got COVID. So what would that lead you to imagine about the vaccinations? It would sort of suggest they don't work that well, doesn't it? Now here's Fox News. They reported that of vaccinated people, the total number of vaccinated people who died were 0.001% of the total. That's called context, good context. How about hospitalizations? 0.003% of all the hospitalizations for COVID were of vaccinated people. Now that's data. So, and the comments were fascinating, because anytime Fox News is on social media, especially Twitter, all the anti-Fox News people will come in and say, Fox News is wrong about everything. Except this time that didn't happen. This time the critics of Fox News in the comments said, uh-oh, did Fox News just get this right with the accurate context, and NBC News is misleading us? Even the people who don't like Fox News said, oh, this is right. They got this right. So, of course, I can't speak to the accuracy of any data, but the way Fox News reported it was exactly the way the public wants to see this, right? We do also need to know that 125,000 vaccinated people got COVID, so that's a big part of the story. But if they're not dying, that's the bigger part of the story. So the other day I was saying that this is exactly how the news should report it. They should tell us the deaths and hospitalizations. And Fox News got it right. Now, I'm not saying that I had anything to do with that. I'm just saying that they got it right. Now, I've told you this before. This is sort of a big deal. You could argue all day about CNN and MSNBC and Fox News and which one's the bad one. But Fox News is continuously better produced. Like you can talk about the on-air talent all day long, who you like, who you don't, you do or you don't like Tucker Carlson or whatever. But just the quality of the backroom, what would you call them, the support staff, the producers, every part of the design of Fox News is really well done. Like substantially better done than their competition. So if any Fox News producers are watching, you guys kill it all the time. I mean, just consistently. You're just killing it. And I'm not sure if the public can tell how much of the quality of your work, makes it up on the screen, because, the on-air talent tends to get the credit. So that was my news of the day. Somebody says, Fox News is right-wing propaganda. Well, unfortunately, we have a news business that does cater to its individual audiences. So it can turn into that, yes. Let's see, what's it say? I think they care. Well, okay. I'm just looking at some of your comments here for a minute. Scott, appear on Gutfeld Show, please. I will do that. I took several months off from appearing on other media because I just needed to get some other stuff done. Let's see. Proof that Dominion election machines in Detroit had Wi-Fi connections. Go to this page. Nope. I'm not going to go to that page because I don't believe that I don't believe it's true. I don't believe that the evidence exists. So I do not believe that we have proof that Dominion machines were connected to the internet. I do believe you could prove that it's technically possible. But proving that they were connected during the election or during any other time before it or after, So the question about whether the vaccinations themselves are causing the variants. I don't really understand that argument. Don't understand it at all. Because wouldn't you get just as many variants with or without the vaccination? If the vaccinations, somebody do me a fact check on this. All right, I'll give you my dumb guy, not a doctor, not an expert, thinking through it. Let's say you've got a big population and variants happen on their own. Right? So the vaccination doesn't trigger the variant. It's just one part of the filtering system that some people imagine allows more variants to break through. But, so viruses mutate, but don't they mutate exactly the same whether you're vaccinated or not? Why would it change? You remember, even the vaccinated people get the virus. So in theory, the vaccination shouldn't make, I don't see the mechanism that would cause a vaccination to increase the number of variants. Because the number of variants, I just don't see, it seems like it would decrease it. Like my common sense says, if the vaccination causes fewer humans to have bad outcomes, it will cause them to spread it less. There should be less variants, right? Just because there's less virus. I would think that the only thing that causes variants is the total amount of virus. And if the vaccination reduces the number of humans who have a virus, doesn't that reduce the variants? I guess somebody needs to explain that better. Let's see if there's somebody who knows this on the comments. So it says the vax filters out, only leaving the variants. Well, but those variants would be there anyway, right? So here's the mechanism. So the mechanism that is suggested, that I don't think is true, so this is just suggested by a commenter, is that let's say the vaccination stopped all the normal virus, but it couldn't stop a variant, then the variant would break out. But the variant was going to break out anyway, right? Because if the variant exists and it wasn't the vaccination that caused it, right? Nobody says that. We're saying that the vaccine simply allows it. It doesn't cause it. So if it's simply allowing something that happened anyway, wasn't it going to happen anyway? Because it happened anyway. It didn't have anything to do with the vaccination. The vaccination simply failed to stop it. How does failing to stop something create more of it? It only fails to stop it. And with or without the vaccination, that would have failed to stop it too, right? So I guess we need more information on this. I see ADA, ADE, variants forever, the virus competes. Yeah, I don't think any of you know how to explain that either. So I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying I don't understand how it could be true, which is a little different. All right, that's all I got for now, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.